Hello, OWL members. I am thrilled to announce this month's Inside the OWL studio will feature BVI, who has recently stepped up to support OWL as a new United sponsor and recently sponsored our 2021 Rising Star Award at the annual OWL Awards ceremony at AAO in New Orleans. BVI is one of the fastest growing diversified surgical ophthalmic businesses in the world. Without further delay, I would like to introduce this month's interviewee, Andy Dawson, Chief Human Resources Officer and Head of Corporate Communications. Welcome to Inside the OWL studio, Andy, and thank you so much for joining us and supporting the OWL mission of advancing diversity and leadership.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. As you know, the OWL organization continually strives to create networking and educational opportunities to support the mission of advancing diversity and leadership. I find it hugely beneficial to hear from other organizations about their efforts around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. With that being said, I'm very excited to hear from you about BVI and the initiatives you are undergoing in this area.
Thanks. I'm happy to share a little bit about what we've been doing at BVI over the last 12 to 18 months. Like many companies, as they've grown and developed over many years, whether you're an established company, a new company, I think the last 18 months during a pandemic has all forced us to take a look internally and a look inside at what can we do different. I was fortunate, very fortunate to join BVI right at the beginning of the pandemic. And I think what that process taught me about going through the initial hiring cycle was what I should expect coming into the company. And it's especially interesting when you realize you're not going to meet your boss in person until it was my second week. And even as I look back on it now, this is a story I'm going to be telling for years. But very quickly coming in, it was really clear that there was a lot of energy, a lot of passion around BVI, but it wasn't clear what it meant. It wasn't clear what we were aiming for, and it wasn't clear how we were working together. So we set out in September of 2020 was the first time we really started to plan this out, was creating a program and creating a path together for us called One BVI. And it was intended as a way of really showing how, with the various different acquisitions and movements that we've made to build BVI into the company that it is today, we talk often and say that we're a purpose-built portfolio, which is very true, but we also have a very purpose-built culture. And as we've taken a lot of these acquisitions over the years, what we've always done is taken the best pieces of their cultures, of their aspirations, of their ways of working, and using the spearhead of One BVI for us was a way of putting this all together. So to me, when you start off with any effort around diversity, equity, inclusion, it starts actually with the phrase you ended with, Abby, which is you've got to create belonging. And I also think when you create that belonging, it becomes very natural, it becomes very organic, and it becomes less about ticking a box. It becomes less about, well, numbers, how many people of this particular size and shape or gender do I have? And becomes more about how are we working really well together? So that journey for us really was the starting point. It became really a rallying cry for us to say, how do we want to do this together? And especially in a time when we're all separated, we're not traveling, we're doing these webinars, we're all learning how to use Zoom, how to use Teams, how to use chat features that goodness knows I didn't even know existed before. What it found is a really way of, actually, this was a strong way to connect everybody. We were just thinking about how we celebrate this as the end of year one for us. And we talk about it being a journey. And I think every time you're trying to create that belonging, that sense of community, it starts with that belonging. And what we've really found, Abby, is we've actually created our own language now. That everything we have has and this is also tied to One BVI, which is great. The really disappointing side is when you look on LinkedIn and you look at every other company, they've got hashtag one company name. And it's like, how do we make this something new for us then? And that's really been the effort that we tried to spearhead.
Andy, One BVI sounds incredible. What I'd love to hear from you, and I hope our audience, this resonates with them, is this intention and this purpose that you as a company and as a group have around belonging. That is so important. I think it gets lost a lot of times in the messaging that we have around diversity inclusion. The belonging is where it's at. That's the end game, and that's where you want to be. So it's wonderful to hear that that purpose and that intention is there for BVI. If you wouldn't mind, I would just love to hear a little bit more detail about One BVI and maybe some more specifics in how you're handling that with anyone.
Oh, it's a phenomenal story for us, and it's one that we're still writing. So come back in another year or two, and then we can see how much progress we've made on this. But a lot of real simple things. It started with some simple things, which is, well, what are our values? How do we get to communicate our values? How do we connect with our values to the way that we work, the way that we show up? And how are our values created actually tell that story? One of our great portion of our values is collective intelligence, where we genuinely believe that we get the better ideas, we get the best practices by taking inputs from everywhere and everybody. And this was, one of the values that we picked up through one of our companies that we acquired a few years ago with Visual. It was one of their core values, and we adopted it because it fits really well with how BVI sounds and works. But it's then so much more than that. It's how do you take it from words on a piece of paper? So instead of saying, well, now you've got the values, you must go out and do this in this kind of way, we said, these are the values, you show us. And for a course of a week, we actually enabled people to say, how are you doing this? How are you going to show up with the values? We discovered a TikTok star in our manufacturing plant in Italy who created this video celebrating actually COVID precautions in our plant that he posted. Got more likes than I've ever seen. It was phenomenal. It was shared so many different ways. Our facility in China had choreographed dancing that they put together, which was just so fun to watch. And then our facility in Mexico really took it to a whole new level. And I think they created a video of a day in the life. And if you imagine, not many people can understand what it's like getting up early in the morning, what if that journey is for people going to a bus, getting to a facility, going through the COVID checks, going to work, and then going through their course of their day. Them telling that story was so incredibly powerful because it shows that, whether you're sitting in the US, whether you're sitting in Europe or the Netherlands or Belgium or Italy or China or Juarez in Mexico, everybody's got something different that they're dealing with. And it was really a powerful way to show how that was part of how they were living their values of coming as how they showed up to work every single day. And it built an incredible amount of pride. What it also built was an incredible amount of competition within the company of who could send the best videos. And so we created this whole little social media buzz internally. But everyone was so proud of what they were doing. And I think when you're creating that belonging, it's less than the name on the door. It's less than the name on your offer letter, your business card, your email. It's, I want to work here because I'm proud to work here. And I think ultimately through a lot of these initiatives, Abby, that's what came through. That's how we started with that belonging. And then it became next steps of this. Well, how does that movement become? We then start telling, well, what's our BVI story? What's important to us? And we recently launched a couple of series of what we've called Bvi Talks, where we're working with our KOLs and actually asking them, well, how do we add value to you? What do you see in us from the outside looking in? We know how we feel now internally, but as a customer, as a partner, as someone whose opinion we trust and we respect and we value, what do you think of us? And it's actually taking that now and saying, well, they're proud to be associated with us. We're proud to be associated with them, but how can we do better? How can we improve our value add with our customers and really drive that customer experience in the same way as we're driving a very strong employee experience as well? That takes us into like where we go through the simple things, ways of working. How do we communicate with each other? Too many emails, too many meetings. We used to have a quarterly newsletter. This quarterly newsletter took weeks to produce. So by the time you were putting something together, it was a great product, but then you've gone through multiple iterations and translations. So we said, well, actually, let's ask the question. We'd implemented a pulse survey process, very quick, very rapid questions, get real feedback. One of the pieces was, can we have more frequent communication? So one of my team just took it upon themselves and said, I'm doing a weekly newsletter. And all of a sudden, the flow of information, like, I want to share this, was really powerful. And it was a strong way of highlighting, again, what teams or individuals were really proud of. And again, it's a fun way of celebrating, but it's a very real way of creating that culture, again, that purpose-built culture that we're aiming for. And then lastly is really recognition. People need to feel valued. They need to feel respected. Whether you're looking at any type of focus on diversity, on equity and inclusion, that, again, purpose and feeling valued, being recognized, being motivated to do more, only comes from, well, do I feel like I'm being appreciated? We were bouncing this around one day, and we were talking about just the simple act of a thank you. We've just finished off a portion of a system launch for us, and we just asked a random question: hey, is there anything we can plug in to our system that would allow us to people to be able to like post on a wall? And lo and behold, it was. We just did it, turned it on, crashed the system twice, because in about the space of a day, the whole thing was filled up with people wanting to celebrate and recognize their peers. And there's nothing better when people are getting an email randomly, or their boss is getting an email saying your person has just been recognized. It builds so much sense of that, again, that belonging. And again, it takes away the whole hard data metrics, because this is about, doesn't matter your gender, your religious state, your race, your ethnicity, sexual orientation, doesn't matter about anything, because it's about who we are at BVI and how do we make it special for the people that are here, and make it feel that they're valued and really appreciated, and more importantly, that people are watching when they're doing something.
Oh, Andy, this has been one of the nicest interviews. I'm just really hopeful for BVI and your group there to resonate with other companies. I think your introspection and your ability to really honestly look internally, but also outside, externally to your KOLs and customers is essential. And I think that, again, that appreciation, that feeling of being valued and respected, we talked about this a little bit before the interview started, but I think that that's the key. Treat others as you would want to be treated, period. That's it. So I so appreciate your time today for this interview. I've learned a lot, and I'm going to hold you to it. You're going to be back next year. We're going to have a follow-up discussion.
Be more than happy to.
Good. So we're going to get into the fun questions. What is your favorite word in ophthalmology?
I'm going to go with visualization. Seems very big and very technically fun.
I love it. Yeah. And what is your least favorite word?
I'm going to go with multifocal, but there's a story why. I'm all for multifocal and varifocal IOLs, but I also have contact lens issues, and I really struggled with multifocal lenses. They gave me horrible headaches. So that's my least favorite word.
I totally get it. I'm right there with you. If you were going to attempt another position in the eye care industry other than the one that you have now, what would it be?
I'd love to be actually a practice manager. And there's a reason for this. I know the following question is, what job would I least like to have? And I'll answer that right now, which is, I just don't have the hands or the steady state to be a surgeon. I definitely need to stay away from that. But when I look at the role of the practice managers and I see them pulling the various component parts together, that as a patient walks through the door, they never know what goes on behind the scenes. And it's kind of like the role that I have now. You never quite know what's going on behind the scenes, but it really makes it work. So I think the practice managers and those networks of practice managers as well, that really go to create the best patient experience, and that'd be an awesome job.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. I think, practice managers and the staff in general are just key and essential to everything we do. Next question is, if there's something that you could contribute to kind of diverse leadership in the eye care industry, what would that be?
I think there's a really simple thing. We've just got to keep talking about it. I think there's no harm in, if I think about some of the panels that our CEO Shervin Karangi has been on with Accelerator, up there on a stage with Jim Mazo and all the others out there, talking very openly about how we look at different aspects of this. We should be having the same conversation when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. We should just be saying, what, we did this really well. It may not work for us, it may not work for you, but let's share those ideas and also promote them when they happen. I worry sometimes that a lot of DE&I initiatives are purely that they're like a project, it's a point in time, and then it'll be replaced by something else further on. It's not the case. I think, we purposely chose, to go down a one BVI path around building purpose, building belonging, building that purpose-built culture for us, without saying, well, we want to hit a number of metrics, because once you hit metrics, then you're actually diluting the impact of what you're really trying to achieve, which is create sustainable change. When it happens, celebrate it, and it doesn't have to be on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, but just know that people are there, and also support each other when people are having a hard time and they're struggling with it. That's, again, the sharing that we can all do much better together.
Yeah, I like that idea. And I think, no one is perfect. Nothing is perfect. I think it's effort and to, again, have continuous and longstanding change.
For sure.
Is the key. So last question for you, Andy. This is the surprise question of the day.
Okay.
If you were a car, what type of car would you be?
Oh, that is a great question. I'm probably going to go with a Jeep. If I was a car, I'd be a Jeep. I can, rugged enough to go anywhere and do anything, but still fun to drive.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you, Andy. And thank you so much, BVI Medical. You guys have been such a great supporter of OWL. And I know 2022 is going to be amazing with your Aaron Powers on board as president. So I'm very excited.
You're very welcome. Thanks, Abby.
Take care.
Take care.